2, 3.
I'm Microsoft teaming with Microsoft Teams. I'm learning and dreaming with Microsoft Teams. The hub and the teamwork of Microsoft 365 in these quarantine times. I'm Microsoft teaming with Microsoft Teams. Yeah, with Microsoft Teams.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 503 of Inside Microsoft Teams. I'm your host, Stephen Rose, and today, grab your favorite coffee mug. I got mine, because we're going to be sitting down with Clifton Coffee Roasters. They were founded in 2001. They began by servicing espresso machinery in the independent business out of Bristol, UK. Reputation grew, the demand for coffee and equipment grew, so Ed Buston joined them, and they began wholesale roasting coffees to the surrounding areas, and things grew and grew and grew. Barista training and everything was awesome, and then the pandemic hit, and things changed very, very quickly. And one of the things I want to say before we introduce our guests that I love about these folks is they work very, very closely with cooperatives, private exporters, NGOs, and indigenous rights groups to ensure that the coffees that they sell are ethical, free from exploitation, and truly traceable. In 2020, on average, they paid 126% above fair trade price, and over 850 families were directly affected by the Clifton Coffee Premium projects. And I'm even wearing my coffee shirt today. I like coffee, and maybe 3 people. And since we have 4 people, including myself, on the show today, we won't say which one is the odd man out, but I have Harrison, Greg, and Josh with me. Gentlemen, how are we all doing today?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Really good to be here, Stephen.
Awesome. Well, Josh, I'm going to start with you. Take a moment, introduce yourself and your role, and we'll kind of go around and we'll come back to you.
Yeah, so my name is Josh, and I work as the Director of Coffee at Clifton Coffee Roasters. And I have the best job. I get to oversee the coffee program and work to buy and source all our coffee.
And you have a cool title, Director of Coffee, which most people don't have.
I'm still trying to work out what it means, but I can tell you it's a great job.
All right, going to Harrison.
So I'm Harrison. I look after marketing and e-commerce at Clifton Coffee. So I do everything from all the social media, all the product launches, all the spiel that's dotted around here, there, and everywhere. I was going to say, Josh said he's got the best job. I'd say that I have the best job. I think we would probably all argue with that one. But yeah, so I basically look after everything that's digital.
All right. And Greg?
Yeah, I'm Greg Berg. I live in Chilliwack, BC. Just north of you, and I do Power BI consulting and been working with Josh and Harrison for about 2 years now.
So what came first, the band or the town?
I think the town.
I don't think anybody outside of Canada remembers Chilliwack. I do. Gone so long, been gone so long. Great band, but it's 80s and it's old, so we'll leave it at that. All right, let's see all your coffee mugs. You all brought your favorite coffee mugs. Let's see them. What do we got? Oh, very nice. Some nice letters. And I like the Clifton one down there. That's very sharp. Very nice.
My name on there.
Ooh, nice.
This one's a very special cup because if you knock it over, the lid closes automatically.
Ooh,
quite clumsy.
That is good for clumsy people.
It's needed.
I dig that.
It's needed. Yeah.
All right. So 2022, you're doing a range of espresso and filter brewing equipment. You're, supplying over 1,000 customers, but your delivery drivers are also technicians, but COVID hits. And you said, and I love this, we don't know what's happening and how to get through it. Talk to me about how that moment and how you reimagine the business from showroom to personal. And, how do you get through something like that? How do you even look at something like that?
Yeah, the pandemic was something that was just completely alien to Clifton Coffee. Clifton has always been about people, relationships, and coffee. Roastery has always had a revolving door policy. Customers coming in, coming out, hanging out for coffee. It's always been a place where there's just been lots of people and lots of action. So when we were told that you had to go to your homes and you couldn't leave, it seemed like a pretty empty and hollow place. It was just me and a few of the other team members and a lot of coffee. We are 95% wholesale by trade. And it was super scary. Just all of a sudden, the lights across all the coffee shops in the UK were just shut off overnight. And I remember the call with Harrison, and we just sort of scratching our heads, being like, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you do? I know that you, that you sat down, you and Harrison started talking about different ideas, but kind of what happened next? I know that you said, we need to reimagine the showroom and the business. We need to shift to a home shift. Harrison at this point was starting to do a lot of your Instagram and social. I know that you and your wife, well, not you, but your wife had just had a baby. So how do you set expectations, and how does Teams fit into all of this?
Yeah, well, we were sort of lucky on the one hand. We were early adopters of Teams. We got on the bandwagon in 2018. And we're sort of bumbling along using it, but never really were forced into a position to use it. So all of a sudden, everybody was sent home, and it felt like second nature for us to log online. Harrison and I could continue to communicate all hours under the sun at this moment, because we realized, unlike the wholesale business, which can turn off, the website is always on.
Right.
And then had to just look at how we could pivot. How could we take these experiences, these coffee tastings, these training sessions out to the public? And Teams was just a really natural platform for us to do it. It actually became a bit more efficient because we could bounce between meetings without having to drive across the country to go to the next training session. It meant that it allowed us to just almost feel like we were still attached, despite being spread across the UK and across the world, with the case of Greg as well.
We were really lucky, actually, because I think a lot of businesses were at that sort of panic station where nobody had any infrastructure in place from like a digital perspective. A lot of people were trying to run up and catch up with what a lot of other businesses like ourselves had already in place. So we were really we were really lucky to be able to just sort of jump straight into a familiar digital landscape and try and sort of change things up a little bit to work with what was going on around the world.
And I was going to say, you installed Teams in 2018 as a way to sort of transform the business. And it was really mostly, though, around invoices and a filing system. Chat was really secondary. So how do you make that shift from this system that people really know just as a place to find things into this communication tool? What are some of the things that you did internally?
Well, for us, it was just a case of, first of all, hosting a company-wide meeting on Teams. People had been sent home, and it's like, guys, we need to chat. We need to tell you what's going on here. So anyone can jump on from their phone or from their laptop, from the comfort of their home, looking a little bit different to the attire that they wear to work, looking a bit more comfortable. And it was just a way we can say, well, this is the platform that we can use now. Everything we already have is here. We have file storage. We have the ability to call each other. We have the ability to communicate. We have the ability to communicate outside of our network as well. So let's start living in here. And then because of it's a one-stop shop, isn't it, Teams? Mm-hmm. It does everything that you need it to. Everything in your ecosystem can live there. So what was really nice to see then, and Harrison, you probably agree here, is just team members getting innovative themselves and using it in new ways that we'd not really experienced yet. Tracking data from forms, collaborating on the same spreadsheets. And then, this next step was the integration of BI.
And then you, got this huge surge in online sales, almost 4 times what you were doing before the pandemic. You had 100 new coffee shops around the UK. You were kind of hesitant to take on new customers, and you found that employees through Teams could communicate with farmers, could calculate costs, cup and score coffees, design packaging, and do these things that they were kind of doing in person, and realize that. So, introducing 67 new coffees in 1 year versus only 51, that's a lot. So how did you see Teams as the way to do that? And how was everybody else reacting? Because sometimes you can see a great thing, but not everybody else in the company sees it. So, that's the outcome. But how did everybody realize that this was possible?
I think we've been able, go on, Harrison, what do you think?
I was going to say, we had to just completely reimagine that whole process, didn't we? I remember having a conversation with you, Josh, about, how we going to do it, how we're going to get it from start to the end point. And we had so much more to factor in now, with the retail sales and trying to communicate not just with, our wholesale customers, but our new retail ones as well. So it was we just had to literally overhaul the whole process and sort of rebuild it from the ground up. And I think we did actually a great job. And a lot of that process now is stayed
It has, isn't it?
to
A
what
lot
we
of
do
the
moving forward, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, a lot of the operations that or the new processes that we've used, we found were more efficient. So we've just kept those and ran on with them, and it's really helped.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Greg, I want to come to you because you had just come in a few months before. Your background is Power BI and taking all this data and bringing it together to show potential trends, where things are coming, outliers, and all of that. Data offers the opportunity to predict what's next. So talk a little bit about how you got brought in, how you envisioned bringing Power BI to this. And then I know we're also going to be showing a demo in a few moments too. So why don't you sort of kind of walk us through you coming on board and what's going on at the time?
Sure. Yeah. So we started working together right at the beginning of the pandemic there. And one of the first things we did, we took some exports from their main systems. So like Sage, Cropster, WooCommerce, some SharePoint files. And we took some static exports and just started building out a proof of concept. And the cool thing about Power BI is that it's agile BI. And so we started looking at what would give the best value initially and best return just on our efforts. And so we started tackling things like a director level dashboard just to be able to see the sales trending over time. And then the Roastery was another big one that we took on just to be able to see the link up between those three main systems was pretty powerful. So.
And let me also add, Greg, that you guys have never met in person, that your relationship is a virtual relationship through Teams, correct?
That is true. Yeah.
Greg could be AI for all. We have no idea.
Right.
Yeah, although Josh is coming out to Florida in a few weeks here, so I'll have to convince him to come a little further.
There you go. So you're moving from static exports to data sources, and you had a great vision of sort of director level, wholesale level, e-commerce, finance, technicians, subscription rate services. You really saw digging into all of this and taking these disparate systems and bringing them all together, correct?
Yeah, because there'd been such a change in the business overnight. It wasn't a case of, going to a coffee shop and seeing customers. It was a case of, whoa, everything is in our computer, it's in the cloud, it's in our website. How do we understand what's going on here? It's all different. So I think to start pulling these data sources together and putting them into one place, similar to Teams, you just have one access point. So all of a sudden you can start to see these boring spreadsheets come to life with these amazing infographics and visualizations that Greg puts out there. And then we can see what's going on in our business. It helps paint a picture through data to understand what was happening at the time.
What was I was just going to say, what's the first one that you put together, Greg, that really showed the potential for this, where everybody went, oh, wow, that's game changing?
I think from an outsider perspective, I'd say the Roastery, when we started pulling in data from Sage and then seeing it side by side with Cropster data, I mean, that was pretty cool. So you could see your invoices, your sales coming in, and then marry it up with your inventory. So just seeing that side by side. And I will say within Teams, Power BI, just the ability to pin a tab and just to see it kind of in line with your communications. Mm-hmm. I think the whole thing that became really powerful. And then being able to see it at a daily level instead of stepping back every week or every couple of weeks just to get your head around it was pretty powerful.
It's awesome. So why don't you give us a demo? I know we'd love to kind of take a look at some of the stuff. So why don't you walk us through and show some of the things that you've created?
Yeah, one of the big things that we had to do at the start of the pandemic was restart our subscription service and get to a point where we had to cancel all of our subscribers and get in touch with them to restart a service, an improved service, a service that we knew that was going to be better. And that's where we started. So this is the delightful landing page that Harrison has curated for our website. And you're going to click on the subscriptions. This will take you through. So you can choose, why you choose us based on our sourcing and our roasting, and someone can start a subscription. You're going to go through and we ask people, coffee's personal. How do you drink your coffee? What type of coffee would you like? How much coffee you want is a really important question as well. And whether you'd like it to be whole bean or ground coffee. And this was the crazy thing here. This slider allowed you to choose how regularly you want a shipment. Now, this created over like 3,200 SKUs on the back end of our website. So this was something that we really knew the BI would help with. So, we then go into the back end of the website. You see our WooCommerce, and you have to go through and you see all these subscribers, over about 300 at the moment. And each time we'd have to select the options we want and hit the exporter. And that would curate this crazy spreadsheet that had loads of zeros and ones, a load of other columns as well. And then we would spend a few, not even joking, a few hours in the morning just deleting the unnecessary columns and rows, and then putting this into a position that would allow us to create a roasting schedule. So we could work out how many batches we needed to roast and how much coffee we needed to roast, filter versus espresso, and all this kind of stuff. So it was, as you've seen already, it was rather laborsome.
Right.
We then, once we got to a point that we understood the batches, we'd go across into our Cropster software. Cropster is a roasting interface that allows us to track all of the roast data, the temperature that we have in the drum, how many beans are in there, and link that back up to all of the QC work that we do as well. So we curate this schedule from the orders a couple of hours later, and then get ready to roast the coffee so that then we could ship it off to our subscribers. So we had 3 systems. We had WooCommerce, we'd export it, we'd roast it in Cropster, and then we get across to Sage to raise invoices. Greg put all this into one dashboard, and the Roasted in House was the first breakthrough. There's this beautiful dashboard that allowed us to see all of the coffee that we were roasting. We could slice by customer. We could slice by product line. We could see the volume by month. We could see the month-on-month rate, whether it was less or more, or day by day. And this was updating hourly for us. So it saved so much work.
Wow.
The sourcing dashboard allowed us to see where our coffee was sourced from, what that looked like from a monetary perspective. How were we exposed when global logistics was pretty weird for a period, but also see it on a map. It was quite interactive to see the spread of the coffees that we get across the world. And then the game changer, the aha moment for us, was this online page. It allowed us to take that huge spreadsheet you saw just now and put it into one dashboard. You had a really nice organized calendar that you could slice by day, by week, or by month. And then this automatically translated it into the exact questions we were asking on the website. How much coffee? How much volume? What was the spread? Is it beans? Is it ground? And this really got us, well, it saved me a few hours a day, but also it allowed us, when we realized that our website had inside it all of the subscribers for the future. So with this data in hand, we could start to see orders that hadn't officially been raised yet. And that allowed us to buy and predict better crop cycles for coffee and really get us ahead of the curve. We've always wanted to be reactive rather than proactive. And Power BI really allowed us to do that.
That's really the key, because reactive is when you're unfortunately so busy doing things, you're not really getting the chance to think about how we can do this better, smarter, do things better or different. And moving to a proactive mode, when you really understand what's happening and why things are happening, and especially looking at things like outliers, it also creates new opportunities. And it sounds like that's exactly what this did.
Yeah.
Trying to get a grasp on it when everything else, it was just, everything was crazy. Trying to understand and simplify our data and see it in a way like that was visual. It didn't make our brains want to explode in the mornings. Was probably one of the most valuable things that we did at the very beginning, and has helped us throughout even till now.
Wow.
And that extra time we gained each day as well allowed us to focus on other things that could add value. So rather than me trying to disseminate a spreadsheet each day, it meant that I could speak to Harrison and be like, Harrison, look, we've got these amazing coffees coming up. We can now see the trends. We can see what people are liking. Let's think of creative ways that we can continue to market this. This website was really carrying our business during the first lockdown. So it was vital that we could innovate, not just react to the orders that were coming in each day.
Right. So that's absolutely amazing. And now hybrid is our new norm. So I know you're doing some things like in-person events are starting to happen again, but you're using Teams to reach more customers by doing virtual training and personal courses, and you're training the baristas in the home. So how are you doing hybrid now? And how are you, because having that interaction with a customer in person does go deeper than being able to do it virtually. Virtual is great, but that combination is what's really important. So how are you looking at this new hybrid, new norm and this going back to work where people are kind of doing a bit of both?
Well, with this idea of smarter and not harder, Teams has just given us this extra dimension. So things, when they get busy, or maybe when they get geographically hard around the UK, we have this utility that allows us to log on and host a coffee session. We have the whiteboard function, and all the notes that we've taken can be saved and converted to PDF, not just rubbed off a whiteboard. It allows us to reach up to, well, like 20 to 30 times more people in regards to training. And it means that we get to speak to Greg on a weekly basis as well.
That's awesome. So what's next?
Best part of the week. Best part of the week.
So what's next? As you see business growing and you're looking at new opportunities, but people still want that in person is still a big part of this. So I think as you continue to look to the future and you grow and you're going to take on this hybrid mentality, what are areas where you see potential growth and new opportunities? And what are some of the things going, hey, we're going to kind of go back to some sort of middle ground between this old way of doing it and this new way? How has this really changed your business model and how you engage with people?
I mean, I think it's hard to drill it down to one specific thing. I think for me, I would probably say retail. Josh would probably say maybe a green coffee level or maybe wholesale side of things. But I think that exactly what you're saying, hybrid, bringing all of those things together so that we get the best of both worlds, so that we can still have those in-person meetings and experiences, but also allow some digital ones as well to reach people further afield. But I think particularly when it comes to retail, for me, from my perspective, it's just keeping a hold of that data, being able to regularly look at what Greg's put together and foresee what might be coming around the corner. I think retail we've had, extreme growth in such a short space of time. And now we need to kind of figure out this next phase where it's going to even out somewhere in the middle. So being able to kind of see what might be coming around the corner, I think is definitely going to be something that we'll continue to do towards the future.
That's awesome. I'm going to go around. Josh, your favorite feature in Teams before we kind of close out and give all the cool links and URLs and all the good stuff.
I think just the way that we've now been able to connect, not just with our customers and our staff in the UK, but further afield. We've been able to link up with farmers and have, usually I would have traveled between, 15 and 16 times around the world to go and visit partners. Whereas now to be able to work like this means that we can have a say over processing during the harvest, periods when we wouldn't usually visit, and keep up this narrative. Relationships have always been key for us, but it's just brought us closer together with the people that matter the most.
That's awesome. Greg, same question.
Yeah, I really like how the Power Platform is coming together within Teams. Whether it be Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI, of course. Just the way they sit inside of Teams and work together. And I will say also SharePoint. A lot of what we built don't really have to leave Teams actually to save files, and we've set up the whole infrastructure to point at certain files within SharePoint right inside of Teams. So that's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Harrison.
It's got to be, I would say, just being able to see Power BI within Teams and have everything all together, I think is probably my favorite thing. I also love GIFs as well. If we can maybe say that. I send a lot of GIFs. That's maybe one of my bigger features that I like.
That's great. Awesome. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Clifton Coffee Roasters, you can find them at Clifton Coffee on Instagram, at Clifton Coffee Roasters on Facebook, and Clifton Coffee on LinkedIn. To learn more about Greg and all the great stuff that he's doing around Power BI, you can go to bigwavebi.com. Greg also was at the Power BI conference last September, and there's a great video that you can check out where he's going through how he builds a lot of this stuff. And then for all of you that are working with Power Apps, Power Platform, Power BI, and Teams, you definitely want to check out Microsoft Build May 24th through 26th. Registration is going to be starting in the next few weeks, so keep an eye out for that at mybuild.microsoft.com. And with that, we will see you for our next episode 504. But until then, I'm Stephen Rose. This has been Inside Microsoft Teams, and thanks for joining us. And hey, go get yourself a cup of coffee and enjoy the day. We'll see you soon. Bye.